This day in Baptist history, it's the May 28th, and our subject is They Were Truly Pioneer Missionaries. Our passage of Scripture comes from Romans chapter 15 and verse 20. Yea, so have I strived to preach the gospel, not where Christ was named, lest I should build upon another man's foundation. William Dean, the subject of our interest and the eldest of the 8 children of Joshua and Mary Dean, was born on June 21, 1807. William's father was one of the earliest settlers in western New York and farmed to support his family. Joshua also served as a deacon in the Baptist church. William grew up working on the farm, and when he was 16 years old, his mother died. Her last loving words were used of the Lord as the means of his conversion. Soon after his conversion, William entered the academy, and in 1833 he graduated from the Hamilton Theological Seminary. Dean married Matilda Coleman, and during the following year he was appointed to begin a mission among the Chinese. Before leaving the shores of America, William experienced the joy of baptizing several of his converts. Among this group was Emily Chubbuck, who was ultimately to become the third wife of Adoniram Judson, the hero of Burma. Inasmuch as the field of China was closed at that time, the Deans set sail for Bangkok, Siam, today Thailand, where they were to work among the Chinese. While at sea, they experienced a mutiny that was settled only when they cast anchor at Amherst, Burma. While docked in Burma, the Deans visited the grave sites of Anne Hasseltine Judson and her 2 children. They then journeyed on to Moulmein and met Adoniram Judson and his second wife, Sarah, who was the widow of the famed missionary Reverend George Boardman. William Dean's life was filled with adventure. While their ship was detained at Moulmein, Sarah Judson asked the Deans if her young son George could sail with them to Singapore, since he was being returned to the States. The Deans lovingly cared for George. After a few weeks in Singapore, the Deans took young George on a Chinese boat to put him on board the ship sailing for America. On the way to the ship, 10 miles from shore and still 5 miles from the ship, they were attacked by Malay pirates. William Dean entered the fray and suffered spear wounds before the pirates were repulsed. George was unharmed since he hid under a seat on the boat. While the Deans labored in Singapore, Matilda died of fever, leaving William with an infant daughter. This sweet little daughter was raised for the missionary by Dr. Baron Stowe, the outstanding Baptist pastor in Boston, Massachusetts, and his wife. William Dean arrived in Bangkok on July 18, 1835, and established himself as the principal figure in the missionary work of Siam. In 1838, William Dean married Theodosia Baker of England. Theodosia proved to be a great blessing in the work, for she was knowledgeable in Chinese and could speak and write it fluently. After 5 years of fruitful service, Theodosia suffered an attack of smallpox that defied 3 vaccinations. Her death was a great loss to the man of God and the work among the Chinese. Dean himself was slowed by poor health early in 1842, but when he regained his physical strength, he went to Hong Kong, especially to teach the Chinese language to missionary recruits. In 1845, after 10 years on the field, Dean returned to the United States. Following his furlough, Dean sailed again to Hong Kong, where he served until 1854. Again, he returned to the States, and this time he met Mrs. Maria Slafter Brown, widowed and companion of Reverend C.H. Slafter, missionary to Siam. The Slafters had gone to the field in 1843, but Mr. Slafter soon fell victim to the disease of the climate and died. In the course of time, the widowed missionary had married Captain Daniel Brown, commander and part owner of a ship that sailed between Liverpool and Bangkok. In 1850, however, the captain had died, and Maria had returned to America. So it was that William Dean and Maria Brown met, and shortly thereafter were married. Upon their return to Bangkok, Maria proved to be a wonderful asset in the labors. The Deans began to divide their time between the Chinese in Bangkok and Hong Kong. Someone gave Maria this tribute, and I quote, "No ordinary words can do justice to her character and work. Few persons whom I have met impressed me as she did. Such womanly grace, such refinement, such culture, such dignity, such force, such sweetness, such spiritual elevation, combined in her character that she seemed almost to realize the ideal of womanhood." End of quote. Dr. Dean planted 6 Chinese churches in Siam and baptized about 500 Chinese disciples, 12 of whom became preachers. He supervised the building of 4 Chinese chapels and ordained 3 Chinese pastors. With the assistance of 2 Chinese members of the Bangkok church and the first 2 Chinese disciples baptized in Hong Kong, he planted the first Protestant church in China on May 28, 1843. William Dean was truly a pioneer missionary who left a great spiritual heritage and example to follow. May the Lord of the harvest raise up and thrust out men and women of like character in our day to pioneer great ministries for the glory of Jesus Christ. To God be the glory.